in, everyone. We will start right on time here, but feel free to let us know where you are tuning in from. I am Renee Lee Weggy. I am a trendologist and a senior publications manager. Today, we are doing our State of the Menu webinar. So I am super excited to have this wonderful trio of trendologists. This is the first time we have this particular trio. And usually I let you all introduce yourselves, but I just want to say that first off, congratulations, as a lot of folks
Thank
in the
you.
chat have said. He is our newest trendologist. We are so happy to have you. Happy to have all your expertise as always. Your commentary is excellent. So to have you officially join us as a trendologist is amazing. And then Claire Conahan, which I will say your name right, because the one time I did not, I felt very bad. I will let you introduce yourselves as well if you'd like, but I just want to say this is Claire's baby, the State of the Menu report. So maybe we'll share a little bit later. There were some circumstances in which we weren't sure if she would be able to present her baby. So we are very, very excited that she is able to. So yeah, we are gonna kick off. Any comments from you guys? Any other introductions?
Nope, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I think we're ready to kick it off.
There's your hint of what I was supposed to be doing.
So as a reminder, thank you everyone for participating in the chat. This is like the best part of our webinar is to be able to talk and speak with you all, for everyone to speak to each other. So make sure you go down to your little drop down menu and make sure you are chatting to everyone. Love this friendly and open, engaging chat. So happy to hear from everyone on the chat. And Claire, I think this was your question. You popped in here.
I do. We have a comfort foods menu adoption cycle, and every time it comes up, we're like, this is so hard because everyone's comfort food is different and comfort food changes over time and each generation looks at it. So I am curious. I see a mac and cheese and fried chicken. Those are both some of my comfort foods. Very specifically, I like the blue box mac and cheese. That is my go-to. And then my mom's fried chicken, and she's her parents, I think I've mentioned this before, her dad had a Southern restaurant and then her grandmother had a Southern restaurant. So she makes amazing fried chicken, amazing biscuits and gravy, and the chicken and dumplings. Those are all like my comfort foods. I don't know what
I don't think I knew that. That is awesome.
Fun fact. And then I went into food. She was like, I'm doing nothing to do with food. And here I am, a food researcher.
Very nice.
I'm seeing finger steaks and liver dumpling soup in the chat, which are some pretty
Ooh.
interesting deep cuts.
Yes.
Really cool stuff. Korean fried chicken. I think, yeah, pizza, chicken, and mac and cheese are really dominating the chat right now, which makes sense.
Boiled corn with African pear. That sounds
I was
really
gonna say.
interesting.
Well,
Yeah, I
goulash is
love
a
all
good
these
one,
more
too.
interesting ones. I do love my liver dumpling soup. That is a great one. As you can tell, I'm getting over what I thought was strep, and thankfully is not. Although the antibiotics would have helped by now, I feel. But soup is a big one. I had pho yesterday because I was like, when I'm sick, I need my pho. So that was great. And I got Hui's suggestion for delivery as well. So thank you again for that, Hui.
Of course. Always opt for a pho restaurant with numbers in the name.
Yes. It was
Any
like
number,
either,
it's fine.
it was like pho 777 or 888. And I was like, well, 888 is very lucky. So I'm gonna do 888.
But yeah, I think we should totally move on, but I'm loving to see like any more comfort foods scrolling in on the menu.
Yeah, for sure. But so join us for our next webinar in about a month. Next month, April 10th, we will be doing Inside the Food Service Mindset. And then connect with us in person. We love seeing you virtually, of course, but in person is always very fun. You can see all the pink in actual real life. It is really crazy. I will tell you that. I will be at Innovations next month, coming up on April 16th, I believe it is. So if anyone will be at Dot Innovations, I'll be doing another culinary seminar there for the second year. And then we also have some other food shows that Data Central will be at, including Food Hotel Tech, which I saw was in Paris. So any lucky people going to Paris, you can catch up with us there. Then we're going to dive into Report Pro. So as you know, this is this team's bread and butter. This is our smart library insights, all of the data and insights that you could ever want are in Report Pro. So just going to go through some of the most recent and also upcoming reports that we will have on there for you. Recently did a top 10 dine around for 2024. So just kind of looking at all of the restaurants in the US from last year that we thought was really noteworthy for you all to check out. There's so much going on in the restaurant scene, of course. So want to boil it down to some of those top ones that you should look at. We have everything from plant-based African in LA to a really cool place called Wild Child in Kansas that of course, Claire had turned me on to, and I talk about it all the time. They have really cool cocktails like this one with shaved ice. And then
Okay,
Claire,
well,
I
I'm
think you're
gonna
going to
plug
walk us
this
through
one.
this.
This is the one I did not write. This was not me. I do not do these, but they are amazing. Our 2025 Pulse Market overviews just got uploaded to Report Pro, and they are, I think they're sometimes overlooked. They're either leaned on heavily or overlooked, but they're these very dense reports, one for every single segment in the industry, and they go through just like everything you could ever want to know. I feel like there are go-tos when somebody's like, do you have anything on this? It's always buried in these and it crosses all. So I pulled out a couple fun stats to give an idea. So like we've got 35% of casual dining decision makers went to culinary school. So if you're like, which segment has the most people who went to culinary school versus on the job training, that's all in there. If you want to know the equipment that is used or planned to be used, that's in there. And then we also have looks at each operator's opinions on how their past year went and how they think their future year will go. So they're just jam packed with great information.
Yeah, this is an awesome shout out actually, because next webinar, we're going to be featuring a lot of information from these reports. So stay tuned for more insights from the operator mindset, but this is going to be sort of the primary place that you're going to see a lot of this insight. So this is an awesome, awesome title. I have the pleasure of plugging some of our more topical, sort of culturally relevant studies that we've been doing this year. As you know, no matter where you land on the political spectrum, I would say that 2025 has posed a lot of changes that the industry is always very curious about. We've received a lot of questions about issues like tariffs in the past 3 months, and something that uh Renee, I think we can see your Slack.
Oh,
Yeah, all good.
that's
Thank
simple.
you.
Thank you.
But yeah, so um, this is a series that we're creating to sort of explore very topical insights in the industry. For example, 64% of operators are very or somewhat concerned about the potential impact of tariffs. And so if we can go to the next slide, we're going to devote a lot of our attention this year in studying a lot of super top of mind issues for folks. Anything from health, safety, and avoidance issues like and seed oils and food dyes, egg shortage and inflation, all of these issues, we're studying them to see how consumers and operators are feeling about them, not necessarily to make a statement or weigh in on a particular side or another, just seeing how the industry is reacting to these issues. So keep an eye open for a lot of these studies coming up soon. And with that, I think we're ready to get into the meat of the matter. We're gonna let Claire kick off the whole state of the menu conversation, but I think one question I have for you, and I think the audience will probably have for you too, is that if folks here remember, we did this webinar back in October 2024. And there is a reason why we're doing this again so early. And Claire, I think I'll let you sort of explain
Yeah.
why it's so great that we're having this new data.
Yeah, so all of you are probably like, didn't we just do this in October with we? And didn't Claire have internet troubles? And why does Claire always have trouble? Because today I was supposed to be at jury duty. All of that is true. You are not mistaken. But we did move the state of the menu one because I think it goes really nicely with Renee's like Renee and Jacqueline's big trend deck to have that state of the menu shortly after. We've been kind of tinkering where it makes the most sense. And the state of the menu was previously in the fall because we updated our menu data at that time, but now we updated all year long. And so we wanted to make sure we got that year end 2024 information to create the state of the menu. So it's the most robust set of data and it really gives us a really good read. So that is why we moved it. I did it 2 times in a row because I wanted it on this schedule to have that really complete data set. So that's, yes, you did see it. No, you will not be seeing the same things. Some of it will be the same, but we are pulling out different things because you all deserve different things. So we'll go on to the next slide. This next slide will look familiar, but it is a little different. It's a little different for two reasons. First, I decided to go way back for this one. And so as a result, usually for these, we exclude catering now and we include non-alcoholic beverages, but exclude alcoholic beverages because we do a separate report for them. They tend to be a very robust part of the menu and it skews some segments. So we do just non-alcoholic. This is excluding all beverage because that's what I had in my historical files, and including catering, again, because that's what was in our historical files. And so this is a new slide that I put together for a media request. And so you all get the benefit of having of the long items per menu. And that's simply, we'll be using that measure a lot. Items per menu is simply the number of items on a menu over number of menus. And you can think of it as menu size. Sometimes we'll call it that average menu size. Even if that's not exactly it, you can think of it like that. And I like this long look because menus did get smaller in 2008 to 2009, and you can see that on the chart, but you can see it leveled out then and then rose for 2020 and then declined then, and now we're rebounding. So if you'll click the next slide. We also have it by the last slide excluded all beverage, alcohol and non. So this, and the numbers may look a little higher than you previously saw because this does include catering and those menus make it just a little bit bigger. So this has the items per menu by segment, and you can see who has the biggest menus. Those are mid-scale and casual, and who has the smallest, that would be fine dining. And you can also see how the strategies have changed over time. If we zoom in one more, everybody, all the segments have rebounded back to our 2020 levels, or even before 2020. Again, these include catering, so the numbers are they do make sense across the industry. It can include, like, that could be 5 condiments. It can be iterations of pizzas. That is where the numbers come from. It varies by category, of course. So the items per menu, you can see that everyone has rebounded since 2020, but fine dining has not. And we saw that in October as well. And they're still not, their strategy has just changed. They are not going to return to those bigger menus. It just doesn't make sense for their business. There's a lot of shifts in their item type specifically that they're tinkering with, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And then items per menu by unit size. This one we also saw back in October. And we saw that chains previously till October, chains were not increasing very much. Those big chains, they were being very cautious after the pandemic. They were not adding to their menu, but we saw that starting to rebound with that mid-year data that we had in October. And that really showed to be true for the chains as we got to that year-end data with them really increasing. We will get into the details on what's growing on chain and independent menus. We will call out a couple things that will grow for mid-scale. I'm just checking the chat here. And then fast casual actually has in the main report a lot of interesting nuance in that they are growing by each fast casual restaurant really leaning into what they do best. So it's all of their core items that are growing. So of course your burrito bowl places are adding a lot more rice entrees. Your pizza places are adding a lot more pizzas, all the burger places. So they're really shifting into their core and leaning into that rather than increasing new items on the penetration side. So that's why it looks like it's kind of pivoting towards that direction.
Thank you, Claire. So now that we're seeing that chains are having a sort of momentum in terms of menu items, what kind of terms, ingredients, and flavors are trending on these menus? Let's start first with the fastest growing items among top chains ranked by menu penetration, which, again, for those unfamiliar with our platform, refers to the number of chain restaurants that are offering these menu items. So, watermelon lemonade, strange tongue twister there. But overall, when we're looking at this list, in keeping with industry movements that we've already previously explored with previous webinars and projects, we're seeing a lot of really strong growth for items related to non-alcoholic beverages and desserts, which, it's, I think, in line with trends that we're seeing among consumer demands for refreshment and hydration, little treat culture. So, beverage-related terms like flavored lemonades, tropical, pomegranate, are growing super well for the last 12 months. Sweet and dessert flavors also continue to gain traction on chain menus like snickerdoodle, salted caramel, mixed berry, brown sugar. So it's always fun, I think, beyond those sweet and beverage related ingredients to also see sweet and spicy on the list here. We've gotten a lot of questions about the spicy movement over the last year, and it's always been kind of a tricky thing for us to identify because I think operators offer ingredients and dishes that are spicy without utilizing specifically the word spicy or sweet and spicy. But the fact that even that term is growing will indicate to me, at least, that the overall movement is growing even beyond operators who directly use that word.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
yeah.
Interesting too. I see potato soup kind of sticks out there. Kind of
Mhm.
a random one. Got to get
But I
that
think
potato
it's a
soup in there.
But I think it also goes in line with, our early discussion about comfort food, right? Like I think
Hmm.
soup, and potato soup specifically, is super warming and comforting. So I can totally see mid-scale and casual dining operators really leaning into that, as a way to sort of offer something really hearty on their menu. So super, super not surprising to me. We'd like to call out a couple winning chain menu releases. This is from our Launches and Ratings platform, and the items that we're calling out here excel at a specific metric among all of the metrics that we track. Here we have the Max XL Double L Diablo combo from Carl's Jr., which is a wildly long term um, to call out, but it includes two charbroiled all beef patties, strips of bacon, jalapeno poppers, pepper jack cheese, jalapeno coins, and then a fiery habanero ranch sauce. So many components. It is certainly unique, both in terms of flavors and in quantity of components. My stomach also kind of hurts, but I know a lot of people who will love it. But I think this is really interesting because this is a combo item. So when you're stacking this combo item against other QSR competitors, you're seeing something that's really different from your classic burger, fries, and drink combination. This item scored really well on the uniqueness factor, 55%, and not indicated in the slide, but it also scored really well on another metric called draw, which gauges how many consumers would visit Carl's Jr. specifically to get this specific menu item. So really, really great at attracting consumers who may not already be familiar with the brand. Um, if we can move on to the next one, Renee. We have the Snickerdoodle Shake from Quick Check. It includes caramel and vanilla flavors blended with cinnamon and topped with whipped cream and cookie crumbles. 61% unbranded purchase intent here is really, really high, especially for a C-store concept. It is in the between 70th and 90th percentile when compared to nearly 7,000 other desserts items at major chains. So it's a really strong showing at a C-store item. And also, it leverages Snickerdoodle, which is one of the fastest growing chain flavors that we previously identified. Next up, one last one we'd like to showcase here, lemon pepper jumbo chicken wings from BurgerFi. 52% on draw here, which, as I previously mentioned, is the percentage of consumers who would visit BurgerFi just for the specific menu item. So wings has been a growing category for years now, and operators who previously did not specialize in wings are also tapping into this trend and getting a lot of good traction for it. They certainly have a pretty strong wing program, lots of flavors, but for a burger QSR chain, wings are not their forte, but something like this diversifies our menu and draws an interest.
Yeah, I
Um,
recently had some lemon burger wings. Sorry, we
Lemon
had
burger.
lemon pepper wings, and they were so good. I mean, I like that it retains that crispiness, right? So if you want something that's not as saucy and still has all that flavor, I love the lemon pepper on there.
Lemon pepper. Yeah, no, seriously, lemon pepper wings are really everywhere. Um, and I'm responding to Matt in the chat here. When we say uniqueness, consumers who are receiving these items in a survey are asked to gauge how different and unique this item are. So it's literally a consumer perception of uniqueness. Um, But moving on to independence, the main state of the menu report includes this really wonderful beast of a chart that we did not include on here, but it has 45 growing items and flavors on independent menus. But this webinar is really about distillation and synthesis, right? So we're going to zoom in on 4 broad themes that we've identified across these growing terms and flavors. First of which is inclusive to all, which is a name that we've provided for a lot of the growing items that are accommodating or inviting uh, a range of diners with more complex dietary needs and preferences. So utilizing sustainable or dietary or healthy, all of these really awesome ingredients like millet, pavlova, which is an egg white dessert, beef bacon, non-alcoholic spirits, gluten-free flour, other items that are also growing that are not on this list because we don't have space, are almond crusted, almond flour, plant-based shellfish. So really inclusive to diners who might be seeking out some alternative ways of eating, right? Um, Next up, we have Posh Pantry. This one I feel really, really strongly about because I love utilizing pantry items. I think Claire does too, which is why I think this is really highlighted on here. But risotto is a really growing category, especially at casual and fine dining. Seafood risotto and carnaroli at the bottom here. But lentil salad also is really seeing a lot of growth. Braised cabbage, utilizing hearty ingredients that can last for a long time, but making them exciting is a trend that we're seeing across restaurant menus. Next up, Renee, yeah, big flavors. This one I'm also super excited about because it's great to see calamansi listed on the list here. I'm Southeast Asian, and seeing the rise of Filipino cuisine and utilizing different unique citruses like calamansi is really cool to me. But really strong flavors from sriracha ranch, chili crisp, to something, that's evocative of nostalgic flavors like fruity pebbles. That's really cool. Really wide list here, but all of these ingredients are awesome, and I'm great to see they're being represented. Gen calamansi is a Southeast Asian type of citrus. It is a small sort of like kumquat-like, yeah, like sort of limey, but has a very unique flavor. It's very hard to describe. You just got to try it to know.
And I think it's pictured there as well. So it looks
Hmm.
like a lime. It's a kind of a Filipino lime, some people
Yeah,
would
but
talk.
it's sweeter than a lime. It's like a lot sweeter than a distinct lime.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true. It doesn't have the tartness as much.
mhm. Yeah. I would say it's kind of, I don't know, it's a hard way to describe, but I would say it's standing more in the middle of between like a lime and an orange, or like a mandarin, rather than being a variant of a lime. The last broad theme we have here is premium protein. Really interesting to see a lot of these different types of seafood growing on menus. Ahi tuna steak, scallop nigiri, steelhead, diver scallop. Also swab, which is a really interesting call out here.
Yeah.
Claire, do you have any insights on why swab and all of these different types of seafood are growing?
I mean, the seafood, I think it goes, Jack presented a lot on it during the pandemic, right? Seafood is something that is, you don't prepare as well at home. So I think places that offer it, not maybe you do, but most people feel like they don't cook seafood as well as a restaurant would. So that's part of it. And then squab always cracks me up when it shows little moments of growing because like it's, fancy pigeon kind of. But it's just like a unique way of doing it. And I think it feels a little bit more special and it's not quite as tiny or like fiddly as like quail would
The
be.
quail.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't have kind of sometimes people don't want to deal with that. So I think it offers both of those things.
Yeah, the quail also gives that like premiumness too. I think, like you
Mhm.
said, it's like some of those proteins that maybe consumers are not as familiar with to cook at home. They're opting to get like, oh, they must know what they're doing with their quail or their squab.
All right. We were just talking about growing, but now we're going to talk about a different section about growing, more growing. And I did reuse the growing and independent pictures. So astute observers will find out that I'm not the picture person. Some of my visual colleagues are. So the growing picture is the same. Next slide, we'll get into this classic one that people always like, um, gainers versus decliners. Last time, and this is probably the biggest shift from what we saw last time, and I was going to be like, oh, let's see if anyone notices, but I'm just going to flat out say it. If you look with catering, included, we saw the exact opposite flip for the October information. Declining was winning and gaining, there was less things gaining. When we remove catering, which is now the default in our menu trend system, that irons itself out and the gainers are actually at about half share. That does tell me that I think we might need to do a little digging into catering. And if that's something people are interested in, please tell us in the survey afterwards or tell us in the chat to find out kind of those exact nuances, as I'll be working on that later this summer, and maybe it'll make sense to feature in a webinar. But that is the difference here. If you notice, that is because it's a slightly different universe. And then that did let us, if you can go to the next slide, Renee, we can then look at which things are growing on menus. What happens in menu trends is each term is given a defined home. Some have multiple places that they play from a term, but this word is a brand. This word is mostly an appetizer or an entree, and they all have those universes. So some of this will have a term that might be double counted, something that you see both as an appetizer and a side. Maybe something like potato soup might live in both. But you can see that the biggest contributor of gainers, and it's important to know for the most part, gaining can just be like, there were 0 last year and there's 5 this year. But we do see, I'll be highlighting those in just a moment, some that are really showing some big gains. And the brands were pretty interesting to me because this does exclude alcoholic beverages, which tend to be the big brand callouts on menus, right? A little bit non-alcoholic beverages, but lots of this brand, there's a lot of opportunity now to start, having your brand called out on a menu. There's, kind of enticing operators to do that could make sense because it does seem to be something where we're it shows a certain level of quality to the consumer.
And some uniqueness too. I know I will be reporting on some retail and restaurant collaborations, right? So when you're seeing some of those names that you're getting at the grocery store on a menu, oftentimes it's a very unique way of showing, Cheez-Its or a Pop-Tart or whatever it might be.
The biggest brand mentions do tend to be for non-alcoholic beverage, but it is happening all across the category. And we can dig into that if you buy some of the duals. Otherwise, I don't think we'll be getting there. Some of the gainers for brand, these are typically the top gainer is what I picked for this. So in this case for brand, it was Fairlife, most commonly chocolate milk, and then Liars was called out. These 2 specific products were the most that were mentioned, though a lot of things were showing up. The coffee one is kind of interesting. There's not a lot of people who make a non-alcoholic espresso martini liquor adjacent option, so that one was growing quite a bit.
That makes sense.
And then, of course, Spritz is still gaining. And this is sort of an interesting one because I did keep the cocktail terms. I always debate because I told you I excluded alcohol, but I want to keep the descriptors that describe a cocktail, right? Something like a Michelada, something like a Spritz. Michelada was actually the top term, but I didn't choose it because it tended to be a flavor profile for things like rice. So it has that tomato and lime and all of those flavors. I went with Spritz instead. And so that is the top growing cocktail type term. And it was across all menus. So these are all non-alcoholic beverages that call out being Spritz. And then the top by entree was shrimp pizza. The most common call out was for Thai shrimp, though there were also blackened shrimp and even like a lumbo I can never say
Jumbo lump.
Lumbo is
We
always
knew
what
where
I
you were
say.
going.
Always happens. We'll go on to the next one. The top for bread. The top for bread was actually cauliflower pizza crust, but I feel like we've talked enough about that. We all know about that. And so I wanted to highlight a different one that maybe not everyone knows quite as much about. And so milk bread is growing and has been starting to grow for a number of years. And it can be in a lot of different applications. It's classic for the katsu sando, but there's also ones where it'll be like a standalone appetizer option like this one with the nori butter, which honestly sounds great.
Yeah, it looks really good.
And then our gainer for appetizers is actually the term poo-poo platter, which one, we have seen a lot of kind of your classic Chinese American dishes starting to have a renaissance. And I know Renee's called that out in a couple other places. This one, deep fried, topped with a bunch of stuff from a place is not the trend, but I just thought it was such a like playful and silly way to do it. This one's interesting because Ziggy Bombs in actually collaborated with a local Chinese restaurant to make all of those toppings. They
Oh.
didn't try to do it themselves, which I thought was kind of fun. But the poo poo platter, you can see them on in our data. It features like it'll be like Italian restaurants just using that phrase and
Hmm.
having a bunch of different. So it's related to that appetizer sampler growing. It's people are calling out across all sorts of menu types, which I thought was sort of interesting. It's not. Oh, and the other key part is that the poo-poo platter is typically like serves 2 to 4 people, right? It's like you go with your family and you're going to the sit-down restaurant and you get the whole appetizer thing. They now have caught on to all of us ordering Chinese food alone for ourselves at home, and they are doing the poo-poo platter for one, where you get one of each appetizer, which I personally appreciate because I always want everything on it, and my friends and family do not. So that must be special for me.
And even just sharing of those appetizers, right? So like maybe, kind of trading down like the full size entrees and everyone just having some of that appetizer as well.
And then the growing by items per menu will be going into that section. So we looked at what's gaining on a term perspective. This is what's gaining from an item type perspective, where we take each item, menu item, each item name and descriptor on the menu, and they go into different categories for item types. So these are the ones that are growing. We saw some of these last time. This is all by the number of items per menu. And so they tend to be, we offer this item and now we are offering more of it. And those are some that we covered last time were appetizer samplers, wings, and entrees. And then Renee's going to get into these kind of new other 3 here in a moment.
Yeah, so sides growing, and we've got bean sides. So beans are, I love telling the bean story. I know Claire, you know this one, but my very picky three-nager for some reason loves beans. And so that's like one of the only fruits or vegetables that he will actually eat in its non-hidden form. But so beans are growing mostly within fine dining, going up 11% in fine dining, but as well as mid-scale and casual. Here we see some black eyed peas at CBD Provisions in Dallas, and I cannot say that without thinking of the band. And then we've got frozen treats. So, of course, we all love those desserts. There's always talk about the McDonald's ice cream machine being broken, but now a lot of QSRs also getting back into some of these frozen treats. A lot of unique flavors, too, right? Not just your vanilla and chocolate or your swirl. You've got your street corn ice cream here. So, well, street corn, that would be interesting, too. Sweet corn ice cream here from K Splits Creamery, but also some of those global flavors like the ube, plant-based milk as well, giving some of those folks who have the dairy restrictions a little something that they can have as well. Specialty iced coffee. I am a big iced coffee person. I feel like there's this actually divide. I've been wanting to ask in one of those like this or that segments that we've done in mid-year trends before, but how many of you either can only do hot coffee or cold coffee? Because for me, I love cold coffee. Like I will have that all year round. I think Claire, you're a hot coffee person,
I am
aren't you?
all the coffee.
Oh, you're all the coffee. Okay. Oh,
It's not
that's true.
even seasonal.
Okay.
I will drink any and all coffee at all times.
Okay. But I don't have the patience to wait for my hot coffee to cool, so I think that is a big thing of why I love my iced coffee. And so I will take just a cold brew or, an iced latte any day. But also if there are specialty coffees, those are the ones that I am gravitating towards, those special menus. So something like this smoked lavender cold foam has a lot
This
going
place
on
is
here.
so fun. It's in Milwaukee, and I actually did get
Oh.
have the pleasure of going to it back in 2019, and they have a
Mm-hmm.
variety of taps with this. So it's like you're at like a classic brewery, and they will pull you
Oh.
like a flight of their cold brews, and then you can also leave with one. And it's if you're in Milwaukee, it's a little off the main path, but I would highly recommend it.
Ooh, that sounds good. And like, yeah, I went to a coffee shop in Madison, near around Valentine's Day. They had like a chocolate covered strawberry coffee that was delicious. You see other fruits like raspberry growing on here as well.
Okay. And then these are things Claire thinks are fun in the report that always get overlooked because they're these horrific eye charts at the end of the report, because I want anyone who does have access to it to be able to see their category and by segment. The Milwaukee coffee shop was, I want to say, Pilcrow Coffee. But these are things that I just have seen year over year. And every time they show up again, I'm like, oh, there's that thing I wish I had a reason to tell people. So I'm telling people, all of you, these are things that are growing in a specific segment, and they've shown that growth over time. So they're not enough to make that, oh, look, frozen treats are growing in 2 or 3 places and they're a top growing thing. It's really important that everyone knows this, but in a hyper specific universe, these things are growing. And the potato skins, I get that it sounds ridiculous, but I have watched them start to grow. And poor Renee and we have heard me yammer on about this for the past several years, and now you all get to hear it. But the potato skin is one of those things, like all that other stuff, where we're like, is this really trending? And you find out that the youngest Gen Z and Gen Alpha, because they fell off of menus, they just didn't even know potato skins were happening.
Mm,
So they're starting to show back up. And then fine dining has a lot that's going on. So they're overall fine dining, we saw that their menus are getting smaller. They're really trying to figure out how they fit. And so there's a lot of kind of making our menu a little bit more casual, which is what's happening to the appetizer dips, but they're doing it in a fine dining way. So it's like, it's a crab dip,
mm,
it's a lobster dip. It's not, it's not a spinach artichoke. It might be that they might caramelize something or use something exceptional, but that's what's happening at fine dining. The pudding trend is one I know Jacqueline was excited to see too. We've talked about like rice pudding. I personally love tapioca pudding. I'm a little concerned for the pudding trend with everything happening for eggs, but I think it'll still manage to come back. I've seen a lot of budino, which is kind of in between some categories, and then pâte de crème, because it is something you can prep and is pretty simple to offer. Another one that's been showing up on menus, I feel like we're at the brink, and maybe we're already there, of not yet, not until the fall, but like a hot chocolate moment. We saw so much happening with lemonade. It moved into refreshers. I feel like there's a ton happening at hot chocolate. All that specialty coffee is moving into hot chocolate, and we're doing a ton of flavors. And then there's just a lot of global hot chocolate that we haven't explored yet. And then lastly, I feel like tea in general cycles in and out and is about to cycle back in. And I think pretty heavily we all know our coffee very well, and people want to know something new. Renee and Jacqueline in the 2025 trends covered yerba mate. So there's a lot of new to us hot tea that people can explore. Iced tea, I agree, never cycles out in Texas or in many places, but it is coming back from an items per menu perspective, which means we used to only offer one flavor. Now we're offering a variety.
gotcha.
Okay, and then we've got our growing by penetration. I usually don't go into this because it is a little bit of a confusing concept. I just told you things were growing in a different way, but because we're doing this so recently, I want to highlight something different. So we've got growing by penetration, and these are particularly interesting because it means that previously a restaurant didn't offer them, and now they do. So we see a little bit of different things start to show up, and it's it tends to be a really good opportunity, because if a restaurant already offers something, they've mostly picked their vendors for that item, right? So on the items per menu side, you might be able to sell in a flavor or something like that. From this side, this means new people entirely are getting into these spaces, and that can be an opportunity. So we've talked about pizza already in different ways, and appetizer sampler. The entree one, this is another one that has kind of come up in different spaces. Ooh, I just saw Sprite is coming out with a tea this year. That was like a viral thing last year, and I still do it. The
Yeah.
entrees are, I think it was even 2 years ago. The wings, the entrees are handheld entrees. And so that tends to be, we saw wings grow, right? Now we're offering them as an entree with fries and a drink. So that's what's happening to handheld protein entrees. That's the entree growth. And then we're not going to cover the dessert mixed samplers because we've talked about that before, but that's the classic. Maybe it tends to be a global cuisine restaurant. You're kind of not sure about the different food items. Now you can try all four, or it can be smaller portions from some of those like casual dining chains where it's like, oh, now here's a slice of cheesecake. Here's a little bit of the chocolate cake because you could, a dessert poo poo platter, precisely.
Yes.
But Renee will cover these other two.
I was just talking about that the other day. I loved this tapas restaurant in Chicago that did like tapas desserts, right? Because for me, I love desserts, but when I get to the end of the meal, I've already had 32 things, so I can't have a huge thing of cake. My niece was actually talking about like instead of having cake for someone's birthday at a restaurant, they did cake pops, which I thought was really smart because they're already kind of small and mini as well. Um, but yeah, so looking at that side with the baked potato that is growing, my dad would have loved this. Probably not the price tag on this bougie baked potato, but he was one of those guys where when we went out to eat, it was either a steakhouse, it was McDonald's for a burger, or it was traditional Chinese. And it was always like, do you have a baked potato? I don't want the cheese and the butter and the mashed potato. I don't know what's in there, right? He wanted the baked potato. So nice that this kind of like very traditional, classic side is coming back. You see the twice baked potato, the stuffed ones, and this bougie one. Any guesses, anyone, on how much this side or this twice baked potato is? And if you look closely, you will probably tell that it is quite expensive because it's got some caviar on there. But I did
It's also
slack
in
Claire.
California, so keep that in
Yep,
mind.
West Hollywood. I was kind of making sure with Claire that this number was right, but as I looked closer, it was
Oh,
wow,
we have
someone
someone
got it
very close.
on the dot. I think someone got $42 exactly, so they might have actually purchased this recently. But yeah,
Good
that's a
job, Vicky.
very bougie twice baked potato for sure. And then energy drinks. I mean, I feel like we get so many questions about refreshers, right? And energy drinks, all these kind of lighter takes on a coffee where we all love our caffeine and we need our energy, but not everyone loves coffee. There's people out there who don't like coffee, right? And so you have these kind of lighter takes going on with dirty sodas and just like the proliferation of some of the sodas coming back. So we've got things like this Shamrock Charger. So it has lime in there, it has peppermint, very nice for, and I just realized that we are coming up on St. Patrick's Day. So happy almost St. Patrick's Day. You've got your green on there, Claire, which I like that green is right up here for the energy drink. And I wonder if that's like green caffeine or green tea or just the color green, even probably here. Growing 54%. Do you know what that's referring to, Claire?
It's all of them. I mean, the truth of energy drinks is that it's almost always one or two brands and their specific
Mm,
product. But this one does, green tea would fall to a different place. So that's not necessarily green energy. It's more of the call
okay.
out to green. And then there's a handful of small brands that do like a green juice that has extra
Okay.
energy in it, but it's
Okay.
the color.
I would be into that for sure. Oh, and then some other growing categories as well. Oh, we see those potato skins again.
And more of my agendas. These are the other like things Claire thinks you should know from a penetration standpoint. The one that I got really excited about and slacked a couple colleagues is the fried veggie apps because it's mostly fancy onion rings, and I can really get into the fancy onion rings showing up. And it tends to be the other fun one. I had never, have either of you two heard of these? I bet we have some people in the chat who have tobacco onions, which are like onion straws that are
Yeah.
cooked especially deeply to the color of tobacco and then have some heat on them. I think more southern thing, and they're often like a side to a steak. So that one's showing up. And then we've got breakfast starches at quick service, which is interesting because quick service is not known for their waffles and their pancakes and their crepes, but they are doing crepes and of course French toast sticks and even some biscuits and gravy. Creme brulee at casual dining, which I think goes back to things that I can't do as well at home. It is hard to do. Like you really need that like torch moment to get that feel on it. So it makes it a little special. Cheesecake at fast casual, which is a little different. And then the veggie main entree is starting to be, how do we offer that at fine dining? Of course, it's still leaning on eggplants and mushrooms, but it's also taking some global influence. So it might be a place that this one I liked is a eggplant katsu curry. So it's some
Mm.
might take some global influence rather than leaning as heavily on Italian as I feel like veggie main entrees have done for a long time.
Oh yeah, so it looks like yeah, a lot of things that are coming back, right?
Yeah, I would
From
say they're not
from
necessarily
before.
new, but I hadn't seen
Hmm.
them show up in our platform with this level of fervor. So
Hmm. That one I looked at because I remember I think the name is just a little jarring. I was like, tobacco.
yeah, it makes
Like what's the
tobacco
story
jump
with
up
that?
to in the trends.
Right, right. Ooh, and then Hui, I think, is gonna take us through some day parts and what's growing with those.
Claire, I think this is
Well, we
Breakfast
are
have
going
a
to do
first
a
poll.
poll though. This
Yeah.
is not the playful poll. That one's next. We are going to do a poll. And I can't remember if, Renee, I think you queue it up first, but this is just simply, I think we did this one last time. So it's which day part do we think, and it's the day part queue for the state of the menu is the title of the first poll, trying to make it as easy as possible for Renee to find in the system.
Yes, thank you.
But it's breakfast, lunch, dinner all day. And if you follow us on LinkedIn, you are already at an advantage because we told you there which one it is. This will include non-alcoholic beverages. And there was a question a while, like a long time ago in the chat on if the different sizes are different items in the platform, and they are not. We count them as one. We have all that detail on the back end, but for the purpose of the items per menu, they count as one.
Hey, let's see if people are getting this right. I'm going to end the poll. Their results, and it looks like breakfast is the highest winner there.
Sounds like we have a lot of people who need to follow us on LinkedIn or check to follow.
Yes, so go follow us on LinkedIn after this, and you will be the king of all the trivia polls that we have now. Let's see. I think I shared that already, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, awesome. And
So
then
the growing
let's see what it was.
answer is only by a little bit, right? It's just a little share. It's still a small day part, but the fastest growing is lunch. And this isn't necessarily, I'm not saying that we don't have, this is not sales data, but this is items per menu. So it is a place where restaurants are tinkering with what works. They might be building out their lunch menu, and there's some growth there. And then the next poll is much sillier and is my own personal curiosity.
Let's see. Yes, I love this one as well. One more time.
I know the anticipation. You're like, what is Claire so curious about? I wanted to make
Perception.
these answers cheekier, but I just went with a very basic. Do you think pineapple belongs on pizza?
The
This one
And to
perennial
is
make them a
question.
little cheekier, like,
divisive.
yes, and it's my favorite. Yes,
Oh,
but I'd
it
never
is
order
not.
it.
Wow.
Well,
No, and you people are monster.
oh,
So
it
much
is.
closer than I'm expecting. My goodness.
What
I feel
does
like, are
does
we all
everyone
going to have to
think?
turn in our trendologist cards?
Oh my goodness, it's so divisive.
Wow. No,
Uh,
no,
quick,
this is way better than I expected.
I feel it feels familiar, like Jack may have done this long ago, or at least done it informally, but I wanted the real numbers.
Hmm.
someone said no, that's poo poo, which I love.
Yeah, when we were talking about the poo-poo platter, a lot of the emoji reacts were very, very foul.
Yes,
Um,
yes. Well,
My
quick
daughter would
story
love.
as we
I think
look
we can
at
close
this.
it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as you guys probably could guess from the chat as well, very divisive. Oh, so actually, yes is more. I'm kind of surprised on that here because I feel like I presented about Italian trends and some pizza trends to some Italian sales folks the other week, and they were not happy with the pineapple on pizza.
I
But we
like this
will.
comment that pineapple on pizza is an abomination because it is one of my favorites. And I said, because I'm an abomination, that is why I like it. Like it's just the wrong
I
choice.
love it as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we're all in agreement here, which I guess puts us in the majority. So perhaps we don't need to turn in those cards after all. Um, but yeah, for to sort of bring this webinar home, we're gonna go and sort of explore growing ingredients and early stage ingredients across the different day parts that we presented. So all day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All of these we're presenting, all of the trends we're presenting here are early stage good bet. That is a term that Claire came up with. And I can take a stab at explaining it, but early stage here, we're talking about trends that have less than 1% penetration on menus. So still very much emerging, but good bet meaning it has really solid growth across 12 months and 4-year growth. So very emerging items with really high growth trajectory.
And I feel like it's
So
worth clarifying here for something like pineapple pizza. It's
mhm,
obviously way more people offer pineapple on pizza, but that tends to be like toppings you can put, that's in a different section of the menu. This is specifically the call out pineapple pizza.
Hmm,
And it is being paired with like fancy ham. So it's like prosciutto and things. So that's kind of a nuance to how these call outs work.
I
yeah,
like that
but
term, the early
yeah, I
stage with that.
I think it's a great phrase. We should probably incorporate it across all of our reporting. But I also love this really comprehensive list because I think it's got a very unique blend of trends that we've been observing for the past 2 or 3 years, and I think they're sort of coming to a head here. A sort of normalization effect, if you will, of things like Basque cheesecake, which we saw 2 or 3 years ago, birria tacos, which we saw 3 years ago and are still making great waves, chili crisp, which would continue to gain traction to my absolute enjoyment. I'm a chili crisp fiend, and so I love seeing this here. And veg tom kha here is really awesome. We're gonna see vegetable pad thai later, but I do think that like it's really interesting to see Thai food continue to be a great carrier or a vector for really great vegetarian friendly dishes, and you're seeing that trend reflected here as well. Anything anyone else would like to comment here before we move on to breakfast? Oh, okay. Breakfast time it is. So once again, we're seeing birria at the top of this list. Still sub 1% menu penetration, but growing really spectacularly. On the right here, you see a birria hash from Hash Kitchen. And yeah, I think it's really interesting to see trending ingredients being utilized across different menu categories like this. I think this is a no-brainer. Everything bagel spice is not a surprise to me. Fruity Pebbles is also not a surprise to me, especially with the emergence of sort of nostalgic menu offerings, country fried chicken. I think all of these things are super, super comforting, I would say. And I think it fits very well with the breakfast day part. Um, that plant-based egg call-out is really interesting to me, and I'm very curious to see how it will evolve over the next year as actual eggs start to experience shortages and inflation. I wouldn't consider plant-based egg to be a cheap alternative to eggs, though. So unless they can bring the value offering up and bring the prices down, it will be interesting to see how plant-based eggs can actually tangibly take over that space. Anything else here? Okay, let's go on to lunch. So last year, chicken pad thai, I believe, was our fastest growing ingredients among independents. But both chicken and veg pad thai continue to make waves here, especially at the lunch segment, which does make sense to me. They're pretty nutrient dense. You can put a lot of really interesting toppings to make it as protein packed or as vegetable packed as you want to. Really solid flavors that are gaining traction among everyday consumers. Um, Smash here is also interesting. I think we also had a question here last year, Claire, about what Smash actually represents, and I'm blanking on whether or not this is inclusive of just Smash burgers
It is all
or
the
if
things. So it's like
okay,
avocado smash, smash burgers, all of the less so at lunch, but like a smash potato smash would also fall here. Any of those call outs.
right, yeah. And then hot honey at the bottom here is not a surprise. We've seen this trend continue to gain momentum and sustain that momentum over the last 4 or 5 years as the spicy trend continue to grow. So overall, solid list of really interesting growing lunch items.
And I
And then
love this.
finally, oh yeah,
Sorry,
go
go
on.
ahead.
Oh, you
Oh no, I was just gonna say this picture that we were talking about with the wedge salad. I really thought it was cabbage here. Doesn't it kind of look like cabbage sliced like that? But I guess that's a new presentation on a wedge where you're
we
kind of
were
slicing it like a tree trunk is what I think you said. We
you're right. Yeah, we were talking about that. It does look like the
Yep.
a chopped off tree trunk with really
Yeah.
nicely dressed stuff on top. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very unnerving, but also interesting to see it
It's an
bisected like that.
interesting way to do the wedge that I had not seen before. Yeah, for sure.
Cabbage steak. I mean, I guess it's lettuce, but still. And then finally, this dinner list is really interesting to me because last year,
Mm.
our dinner list was full of very savory items. I think there was a lot of fish on that list last year, but we're seeing a lot of sweet here now. Milk tea, pandan. Again, the rise of sort of Southeast Asian flavors here. Barbecue chicken wing is very interesting to me. I'm curious to see what you thought about this list, Claire, because that a lot of these ingredients surprise me, especially for dinner.
I mean, and again, I didn't break it down and I thought about it, but I ran up against a time crunch. I think it does show though that dessert is kind of more of a dinner thing, right? And so that it makes
Mm,
sense that as we're watching that grow, that we'd see some of those dessert things showing up. And the barbecue chicken wing, I guess, is a little interesting, but if it's growing everywhere else, why not see if it's appealing for dinner?
right. But yeah,
Oh man, we've
Claire, do
got
you want to take us
a
home?
See, we've got to hurry. We had our fun stuff at the end. These are pretty much the exact same bullets that we had last time. So if you listened last time, they'll look the same. Menus are continuing to trend towards and have achieved recovery. Overall growth is on an items per menu basis rather than penetration, though we did talk about some of those pockets, and that makes sense because operators are being a little cautious. I would rather lean into what's going well than necessarily introduce an entirely new category. Chains are now back at big innovation and making their menus bigger. Lunch is the area that's at least growing from an items per menu standpoint. So there's some opportunities there. And then the last one, bullet five, did switch from last time, which is that the term categories had a year of growth with a lot of opportunity for those brand callouts that Renee noted. You know, it's interesting from both quality and to kind of differentiate a little bit. And you can also be playful with some of those brand collaborations. And this is all from this report in Report Pro. It's there if you have access to Report Pro and the essentials. You can see all the nitty gritty charts that led to this.
And then we are just going to wrap up with a few fun new items, some cool stuff. Love this little doggy picture, Claire, with the green as well. You got your green
I
agenda
know,
with
I
the
have my green
pickles.
agenda and I've got green pickles. So this one showed up. My family loves pickles. My daughter even got pickles in her stocking from Santa 2 years ago. So we are definitely team pickles. When I saw this one show up, I guess that I've already mispronounced one word and I cannot say the pop singer Dua Lipa. Did I do it right?
Yeah, Dua Lipa.
She's the one that did the kind of the dirty soda with the pickle juice back in around, I think when the last webinar was
Oh,
October.
yeah.
And it was like, hey, Clausen, oh, this is the only one that works. Will you do this? And they were like, if you like it, 10,000. And it got way more than that. So they're doing this specifically in big St. Patrick's Day cities. So it'll be New York, Chicago, and Boston. The idea being that you can pickle yourself and use it as a mixer and then unpickle yourself and use it as an electrolyte the next day.
Oh, that's very smart.
Catchy,
It's
right?
very clever. I like that.
And then we're running out of time. We've already established that I'm a big coffee fan. I did not know the beautiful sunflower branding, but it's been a bit since Starbucks really leaned into a light roast. They're known for like the really dark pike place, but this is one that they've done. And it is kind of a lovely lighter option. And one of their things that as they're trying to lean into being that third place, I guess we don't even have work, so we don't even have a second place. Anyway, as they're trying to encourage people to stay, you can actually get this as your second cup as a free refill, which is definitely a departure from some prior policies. So thought it was kind of interesting. I did try it. I actually liked it a lot, but
Yeah, a couple of cool things from me. I'm a big fan of QP Japanese mayo, and this company, Kabi, basically launched into market a plant-based version of Japanese spicy mayo. So these are made from sake leaves, a byproduct from sake brewing. It's bound by xanthan gum, so there are no eggs in this spicy mayo. So really interesting interplay with, a really exciting creamy condiment for folks who don't eat eggs. And then one more interesting shout out here. Um, this is a story that I recently read on Eater that I found super interesting. It's been an emerging TikTok trend for a while, but hot dog towers or wiener towers, as many operators calling it. Yeah, it's a delectable, decadent party tray. This is from Trina's Starlight Diner, I believe, in Somerville, Massachusetts. But we're seeing wiener towers pop up in Charleston across other metro areas. But yeah, really interesting and a deeply unserious trend, but it's just fun. It's a fun trend, which I think a lot of people will be needing over the next several years.
Can
Um,
you say that term again? What kind of tower? We
Hot dog tower or wiener tower?
Okay. I
One
wanted to
word.
hear it again. I wanted to hear it
Yeah,
again.
yeah, one
Wiener
word.
Tower. And we talked about onion rings earlier. Have you guys seen this on TikTok? I really want to make these onion chips. Just one of the things that we will probably cover in our social media sensations report, which if you haven't seen, we ask consumers what they think about all the different viral foods and beverages. But this is just like really, mandolin thin sliced onions with a bunch of cheese. Bake it up. They're like little crispy chips. They look delicious. And then ketones. So you all know like keto diet, ketosis. This is a new energy drink. I think it was probably end of last year, but I've been looking into some functional items and I looked at this and it's a ketone based energy drink. So instead of sugar, they are using ketones. Um, I don't have too much time to talk a little bit more about that, but just something interesting that I saw.
But overall, thank you so much, everyone, for coming to our State of the Menu webinar. I hope you walked away with something interesting in mind, some new flavor inspirations for your menus. Next month, we're going to have Inside the Food Service Mindset with myself and Ann Galladay, who you've seen on previous webinars before. We're going to go through everything that you could possibly want to know about what it means to run a food service operation, from business challenges and goals and profit strategies, different ways to approach the market in 2025. So stay tuned for that. And I have one final message before everyone leaves, which is we are beginning the data collection process for our annual Top 500 report, the Data Central 500 Top Chains report. When you receive a copy of this webinar, if you are representing a chain brand and if you wish to participate in our data collection process for this report that ranks the top 500 US chains in the country, please feel free to reach out to us, visit that survey link, and we will be happy to work with you to get that data and then send you a free copy of the report once it's out. But it's an annual study of the top chains in the country. So definitely an exciting project and hope to see many folks participate and work with us here.
Awesome
Um,
call out.
yeah, and I think that's it. Just to reiterate to everyone, the recording and the slides will be available, I believe, in a post-webinar email that you will get. That is a question that we've gotten throughout the webinar, so I just want to clarify for everyone here.